Hello, everybody. Welcome to those of you joining us from, I don't know where you're tuning in from, but I'm on some various platforms here. I'm also just going to, if you bear with me, go live on Instagram. Hopefully this works. Okay. Hi, Instagram. Welcome to our First Friday update, and here on Facebook and LinkedIn and everywhere else. Welcome to you all, no matter where you're tuning in from. It is a beautiful day in Chicago. Glorious. The weather has actually been so nice to the point that I was shocked to know that it was First Friday again. It seems like it just came up really, really fast. We missed last month's First Friday because it was the Labor Day weekend, holiday weekend. So we gave our staff a day off on the Friday before Labor Day weekend. We had been working so hard on all our Afghanistan pro bono cases. And just as a token of gratitude to them, we wanted to give them a full day off in addition to the Monday of Labor Day. So I missed everybody in September, so I'm back here for October First Friday. I still cannot believe the weather is just absolutely gorgeous. So welcome to everyone who's joining us. Not sure where people are joining in from, but we're on like the Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube, and then I also have a separate Instagram here. I have so many loyal followers on Instagram that have been together with me throughout all this journey. I feel like Instagram is a real personal, DM and kind of comments and stuff. And obviously each platform has its own way of communicating. But we're just grateful that we get to chat to so many people and have people tune in from far and wide. So I have been waiting to have this conversation with everybody since the travel bans were instituted. And really, let's cut to the chase. I'm going to talk about that first. I'd say for the past, 18 months, pretty much all the questions that I get not all, but a huge amount of the questions that we've been getting throughout this whole pandemic have been related to the travel ban. And as I was saying to people, people would ask, when is it going to end? I was like, if I had $1 for every time anyone asked me that question, we would get it asked all the time. And we didn't have any information to share. Up until recently. And so let me just kind of give an update to those who may not have been familiar with what happened. But last week, we heard from the administration that the travel ban is going to be rescinded. This is such welcome news for everybody. I mean, personally, this has impacted me. Professionally, personally, I know how many people this has been impacted or have been impacted by the travel ban. So then they told us they were going to be rescinding the travel ban as of early November. Now, I have not seen a specific announcement or all the details since then. So they've said that as of early November, the travel ban is going to be rescinded. No specific date for people who did ask. We do not yet know the specific date, but we were told early November. The travel ban will be replaced by a vaccine requirement for all international travelers. So the way the information has been given to us, it's not that it's replacing the vaccine requirement, that's instituted just for people coming from the travel ban countries. As far as I'm aware, and from the information we've been given, this vaccine requirement is going to be imposed on all international travelers as per the info we've been given so far. So, that's a welcome change. We have been long asking for the administration to, instead of like banning immigrants completely, can we replace it with some science-based approach, which we had been asking for vaccine and testing in lieu of just like blanket bans. So that's the good news, is that they've listened and they have taken on those recommendations, and we are so grateful that we will hopefully, we won't have to deal with these travel bans anymore. So with that being said, though, there are still a lot of details unknown, and we don't have all the answers right now. Again, just kind of know that as soon as we get information, I promise you, I will share the information. I think you guys know at this stage that if you hear something from me, it's verified information. I'm not going to comment on rumors or on things, that we're not sure about until we actually see, the information, and the information that I'm getting, that I'm sharing with you, we received, our Bar Association, AILA received through a Q&A with the administration. So that's the first thing. We don't know the date. Welcome to everybody who's joining. I'm talking about the travel ban, and hopefully the end of the travel ban, the impending end of the travel ban, which obviously cannot come soon enough. But it's coming soon, early November, no specific date, and it'll be for vaccinated travellers who can show proof of their vaccine and testing. Now, a question that we've been getting is what vaccines are going to be sufficient for purposes of entering the US. There's vaccines in different countries that are not available in the US. The ones that are here are the Pfizer, Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson are the 3 vaccines here in the US. Obviously, outside the US, there's the AstraZeneca vaccine. There's an Indian version, I think, of the Pfizer or the Moderna. There's Sputnik, there's the Russian one. So we don't know yet. Again, we still have not been given the information. They haven't, the administration hasn't given it to us yet about what vaccines will be counted as being, fully vaccinated. They said they were going to rely on information from the CDC. And we haven't seen that yet. So I'm sure that's forthcoming. Obviously, there's, some kind of logistical stuff and procedural things that they need to figure out. But as far as, that's kind of the info we've been given. As far as exemptions, the administration did confirm that the exemptions will be few and far between. And so the exceptions for this, they said very narrow vaccine or exceptions for children, for people who are participating in clinical trials, and humanitarian exceptions for people traveling for, important humanitarian reasons who may not have access to the vaccine. And again, this is quoting the administration. So they've said these will be very limited exceptions, and we will be requiring that people who receive these very limited exceptions agree to get vaccinated upon arrival. So, that's pretty clear that, I guess what good would the vaccine requirement be if there was all these broad exceptions. So that's kind of the info we've been given so far. They've also said they will be tightening the pre-departure testing requirements and adding a post-arrival testing requirement for unvaccinated travellers. And there will also be some contact tracing involved. So just to recap, the travel bans will be ending in early November, date forthcoming. It's going to be for fully vaccinated travellers from all over the world. As far as what it constitutes a fully vaccinated traveller, we do not yet know what vaccines will, be eligible to get under that kind of umbrella. So we need to wait for CDC instructions on that. There will be some very narrow exceptions for people, children, trial participants, people who cannot get access to it. For those people who need to be coming in on without being vaccinated, and they need to agree to get vaccinated upon arrival. There'll also be some contact tracing and some additional testing requirements pre and post arrival. And that is pretty much it. We don't know when we're getting more information. We obviously are keeping all eyes on this. We will absolutely let you know the minute we see it. But as of now, we don't have a specific date. We don't know what vaccines are coming. But I think, it's good news, obviously, and we need to kind of focus on what we do know. And what we do know is that the travel ban will be ending soon, which is fantastic. So people have been asking me about booking flights, and obviously we just don't have a date. So I don't know when I can't recommend when people book flights. They said early November, but we don't have a date yet. So I would say if anybody's booking flights, make sure, that there's perhaps, from your own point of view, if there's the ability to change the flight if needed. So that's the news on the travel ban. As far as people who are applying for visas and how, this will impact them, we just have to wait and see. I assume there will be more capacity at the embassies and the consulates now that they won't have to deal with the travel ban. And we had some meetings with the Post in London, and they had mentioned that the embassy in London, they were getting emails, the volume of emails in 1 month that they would normally get in a year. And I mean, that's a crazy volume for somebody to take on. And so, I mean, obviously we sympathize with the additional workload and so on and so forth. But I hope that with the ending of the travel ban, people, the embassies won't have to deal with these national interest waivers, and then they might have more capacity to schedule appointments. Hopefully that's the case. So we'll have to wait and see. But as far as people booking appointments and wanting to know when, they should book them for, it just, it depends on what consulate you're in. Some of them have extremely limited availability anyway, because of, just backlogs and everything. So kind of just stay tuned in relation to that. If anyone has a question, by the way, Instagram, I know I can see your questions here. If you pop up, just obviously be aware that there's tons of other people on the Instagram thing, and there's no confidentiality, and I can't really answer specific questions. But if you have any general questions, you can pop them in and we'll try to get to it. But again, just know, don't put anything confidential or anything like that in the chat. Okay, other questions that we got was somebody was asking if Ireland has not caught up on the embassy appointments by the time their I-130 is approved. Could we get seen any faster within any American state? Okay, so you definitely would need some specific advice. I'm not sure. I-130 is a family-based green card petition. They're normally filed either to be processed in the US or abroad. You generally can't switch posts. It's pretty difficult to do that from one country to another. But I guess this person is looking to switch to process in the US. There's just so much to kind of unpack in relation to that. Like, how are you entering the US? What are you coming into the US on? And then to file a green card. I mean, it's kind of too difficult to really answer that question. You'd need specific advice there in relation to your case. So that's that. But we have seen kind of an uptick in appointments be scheduled in Dublin, London, and other posts as well. So that's a good sign. We've seen some E2s, some employment-based green card interviews be scheduled. So that's a good thing there. Okay, someone's asking, what's the lowest amount invested that I've seen for an entrepreneur E2 approved? So this is an E2 investor visa. Personally, here through our firm, I would say, I think around 100,000 of an investment. This is all really relative to the industry, though. It's, it depends on what your startup costs are for your business. So E2s are for somebody that are either, purchasing an existing business in the US, or they're setting up a new business, and they need to make an investment into that business and, meet certain other requirements for the E2. So it just kind of depends on your industry. The regulations do talk about the investment being substantial, needs to be substantial, but that's not defined in a monetary, in a financial amount. So it depends. The typical lawyer answer, it depends on your industry. It depends on what your startup costs are. Depends on, what type of investment you're making as well. So whether it's cash, equipment, IP, there can be other types of investments. So, but from our practice, what I've seen is around 100,000 amount be approved. That was a few years ago for an app. So yeah. Okay, how long are you looking at? Someone's asking, how long are you looking at before the USCIS start looking at spousal visas after they receive them? Okay, that might be the processing times for the I-130 cases. It depends. It's around 6 months for the first part of it, but it kind of is relative to like where you're applying and whether the full green card's being applied in the US or whether you're doing part of it here and then part of it abroad. Oh yeah, Amy, my friend and amazing immigration lawyer, is on. She's saying, as rightly so, it depends on the consular location in terms of like availability for scheduling the interviews as well. So that does definitely depend. But yeah, I mean, I think processing times have been really high across the board. It's one of the things that we've been trying to do as far as trying to keep the USCIS accountable. There's various litigation in relation to other types of USCIS cases. There's a big lawsuit on the work permit, so the EADs, which is the employment authorization document for H4s. Spouses of H1Bs and L2s. So yeah, and that's just to kind of, I guess, highlight the high processing times across the board. Okay, what date in November will the COVID ban be lifted? So I addressed that earlier, but just to reiterate that we don't actually know the specific date. So we're waiting to find out. As soon as I get information, you guys will definitely be the first to know, but we don't know right now. And there's still a lot of details that we're waiting for. I think mainly the date and the vaccines, what vaccine will be permitted and will be acceptable here. Okay, someone's asking, what's the average time for EAD renewal? Filed your EAD renewal 6 months ago, haven't heard anything. So it depends on the category, but the processing times are really high, astronomically high, and probably historically high. I would say that whatever, depending on what category you're in, there are lawsuits that are taking plaintiffs right now for some of these delays. So I know a lot of people, just the thoughts of maybe suing the government is not appealing to people, depending on, some people are fine with it, but it just seems like it's a bit of an intimidating thing to do. But there are attorneys who are specializing in these class action lawsuits, very reputable attorneys who I know quite well. Chuck Cook, Greg Siskind, and there's a big AILA team, our bar associations, taking on some of these as well together. So perhaps look into that. It just depends on what category you're in, and kind of the lawsuits have different requirements for plaintiffs. And so, yeah, so that's in relation to USCIS processing times. What else do we need to discuss? Somebody had asked previously about our Afghanistan cases and what had happened in relation to that. So we filed a lot of humanitarian parole applications for people. I obviously not going to go into details because of, client confidentiality. So if you're an attorney and you ask that question, there's some great resources for you. There's AILA listservs that's been established, and just some other great practice advisories and practice groups. So feel free to contact me and I can share those with you. But a lot of those are still, people are it's an ongoing situation there in Afghanistan. And so, yeah, I think there's still a lot of work to be done in relation to trying to get people safely into the US. What other questions did I get? Somebody had asked ahead of time, what should they be aware of in relation to citizenship, filing for citizenship? So for this, I would say, look, I don't ever think there's a time to be DIYing your immigration process. If it's citizenship, there's citizenship clinics and various nonprofits. There's citizenship days. If you can't afford to hire your own private attorney, you can go for one of those screenings. You don't know what you don't know, right? So there could be something like, sometimes people think, we fill in forms and file cases. There's so much more to that, to being an immigration lawyer, as my colleagues will agree, than filling in forms, and every answer to every question is critical. And just even things like, you could have inadvertently registered to vote and you may not have known that even happened, and so that can be a big problem. There can be issues with, perhaps if there's tax issues, there's just lots of things that can potentially come up. And so you would really need a screening in order to know whether you're a good candidate for citizenship. And I just don't think it's something you should try to do on your own. It just never makes sense to me, especially when there are, a lot of resources available to help people regardless of your situation. So please take that from this, that don't try and do something on your own. Go and see an experienced attorney for some help. Hi Sasha, thanks for jumping on. Hope you're doing well. So Sasha's asking for O1 visas. Are there some countries where the final interview with the consulate or embassies are moving faster? So this is a topic for that's been on a lot of our listservs, is basically where people can go for interviews for their O1s. And I actually just did an interview with the magazine this week in relation to this. Just for O1s, this is the extraordinary ability visa. We do a lot of them for people in various industries. And so it definitely matters where this person is located, because the O1 is a 2-part process. So the first part is filing the big, massive application packet with the USCIS, proving that the person has extraordinary ability, that can check all the boxes depending on which O1, whether it's O1A or B. all the evidence showing that you're going to continue to work in your field, so on and so forth. So that's a big case that's filed with the USCIS here. And that's reviewed and adjudicated. And then assuming that's approved, assuming the person is abroad and it's not a continuation of status or a change of status here in the US, I think for purposes of this question, the person is abroad. So they need to then go into an embassy and get a visa stamp put in their passport. This has been, like, I don't think we've ever had to, with the pandemic, we have to really think about how we can get somebody in for an interview. And before that would have been, just a routine thing. Whereas now we're like trying to, coordinate flights and all sorts of stuff that we never really had to do before, just by virtue of the backlogs created by the pandemic. So Sasha, it depends where the person's located. It depends, are they in a travel ban country? Are they in one of the countries that has been subject to the travel ban? We had a client that had, we've had somebody have an interview in Turkey. We had somebody had one in Lebanon. We've had clients have O1 interviews in South Korea without issue. If somebody is not from that country, we need to see whether the post will accept the person as a third country national. So coming into, let's say, Mexico, when you're not a Mexican citizen or resident, can you get an interview there for your O1? And it just depends. So consular posts are kind of changing their procedures and who they're accepting for interviews based on backlogs and, all sorts of stuff like that. So I think it just really depends on where they're coming from. But there definitely are posts that are faster than others. Whether or not they will accept a third country national in there, though, is another thing. So there's a few considerations there. Another thing that I think is important to note here is whether somebody may be eligible to get their visa renewed via mail. So if somebody's abroad and has had a visa in that category before, it may be possible to kind of forego the actual visa interview and mail in your appointment. But again, that depends where you're located, what's your category, where is your previous stamp issued, is your post amenable? Are they up for doing a renewal through mail? And that's something that we'd have to really assess. But yeah, processing times for consulates are definitely across the board, just all over the place. So you really kind of need to see getting lots of people joining in. Hopefully you guys are getting some good info. Travel ban we discussed for those who are just joining. Yes, the travel ban will be ending, but no, we do not know when that travel ban is going to be over. As far as other immigration news, there's just a lot going on with regards to obviously the horrendous deportations of Haitian nationals and all sorts of horrific stuff happening at the border. So we're, disgusted by that. And we're going to continue to hold the Biden administration accountable for that. People don't get a free pass just because they're Democrats. And we are absolutely here to make sure that there's humane treatment of migrants and common sense immigration policies. And, we haven't seen a lot of that. So we will be pushing for that. There was some news this week about the change in ICE priorities for deportation. So that was good news in relation to who will or will not be considered a priority. There's been a lot of stuff in relation to immigration reform through Congress and budget reconciliation. It's been, just a roller coaster, which obviously immigration has always been like this. But these are people's lives, people on DACA waiting to see whether they'll have a permanent path to remain here. It's just awful. They've been in limbo for so long, and so many times it seems like we're going to get it over the line and then something happens. So nobody's giving up. The will is definitely still there, and the vast majority of Americans support common sense immigration reform. It would make sense economically, and it's just the right thing to do, and it would just, it would be a win-win. So I hope that we can continue to push for this, because we really need to this needs to be done. If not now, I don't know when we could ever get it done. So hopefully, there'll be some movement there in relation to that front. Okay, so a couple of questions. Someone's asking, those who are living in the US and want to travel home to Ireland when the ban gets lifted, is there any way to get an expedited appointment at the embassy for J1 visa stamping? I mean, that's I'm so reluctant. I obviously can't in this type of forum advise anybody to leave the US. It's just not the appropriate forum for that. You would need definitely some specific advice. It's been tough to get appointments though. And so I would look to see whether you may be eligible to renew via mail. I don't know, but that's something you could look into. That might ease capacity. Hopefully I can do some advocacy there in relation to we've all been doing this. Looking, Ayla has been fantastic about trying to get some policy. There's a very detailed policy brief that I've discussed multiple times before on here, but about seeing whether they will expand this renewal via mail, which would help a lot, because then people wouldn't have to go in to get the stamp in their passport. There's no reason why people couldn't renew via mail. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I just would be very reluctant to advise anybody. Well, our clients can contact me directly and we can talk about whether or not that would be a good idea for you to leave. But just leaving the US is such a big deal right now, given, obviously the travel ban's still not fully rescinded as of now. And, there's still, just a lot of uncertainty with regards to embassy appointments. And so just for that reason, I just can't, couldn't say, yeah, leave, that's not something we could do right now. But I just think you just really need to, if you're on a J1, presumably you're working through, I don't know what type of J1, there's loads of different types of J1s. So, perhaps your employer has access to an immigration attorney or the J1 sponsor or somebody who can give you specific advice in relation to that. But from our point of view, we've seen things where, they don't go people's ways or people leave kind of against advice or book things on their own. And I've just seen them when they go wrong and it's just not worth it. So we really have to advise people to be conservative. The one time I'm conservative about anything is leaving the US, because it's just a risk that I personally, with all this uncertainty, it's hard to advise people to assume that risk. So somebody's asking, if the country's had a travel ban lifted, will that remove the national interest exception? I know that's hard to guess, but is there any idea when the backlogs at the embassies will start to wind down? So with the travel ban being lifted, yes, it should remove the national interest exception, because it was an exception. It was a national interest exception waiver to the travel ban. So it was requiring us to prove that somebody's entry would be in the national interest in order to get one of those visa stamps issued if you were in one of those countries. However, the second part of this question is any idea when the backlogs at embassies will start to wind down? I think to get an expedited appointment, right? So these are two separate issues, an expedited appointment and then the travel ban national interest exception waiver. So while the travel ban may be gone, hopefully it will be soon, should be gone soon, you're still in a line with lots of other people. So to try to get an expedite on your visa interview, I think you're going to have to show some type of national interest or some type of circumstances that would warrant you getting your place in line ahead of other people. So I'm not sure it depends on your industry. It depends on what impact you're having, but all these things are important, I think, to trying to put forth a case for getting an expedite. And normally as well for expedites, you only get one opportunity to request it for your visa appointments. You really need to make sure you know what you're doing and that you just get advice, I would say, in relation to that, because generally you only get one opportunity to do it. So yeah. Okay, well, I think that's kind of the majority of the questions that I'm getting. I just wanted to hopefully make this quick. We're at half an hour, so that's quick, I think, for us. Thanks to everybody for all the support over the past, year and a half. It's hard to believe that we're still talking about the travel ban, 18 months later. But like I said, I know personally, professionally, how people are feeling about this, and it's just pretty emotional to know that the bans will be gone, that people's families will be able to visit with obviously vaccines and testing and everything. But it's been a long pandemic for people, and I just look forward to families being reunited and employers being able to bring staff over and all sorts of that happening. You're welcome, Sasha. Hopefully that was helpful. But yeah, the support's been amazing. So thankful to all of you guys. Oh, you're welcome, Balaam. Yeah, to have everyone here. And, you know, I'll continue to, I don't think the first Fridays will go away just because the travel ban's gone. Hopefully I will. I mean, I think we'll always have immigration news to share. Hopefully more positive news. There's some other stuff happening with some startup visas. A lot of advocacy in relation to that. International Entrepreneur Parole Program. So there should be some positive changes that we can share forthcoming. Obviously, Congress has a lot on its plate right now with everything happening with the budget and Afghanistan, and like there's just a lot in immigration reform. And so, you know, but we'll still keep pushing. We'll still keep pushing for, I'm loving all the hearts, and thanks, guys. You know, it's not exactly easy work. It's not easy for you guys either. I know it's tough. But I think having just such a supportive community, and my fellow immigration lawyers too, the support that we give each other is phenomenal. And I just don't know how you could practice without having just the most amazing colleagues ever. And we're also generous with our time and our advice and our expertise. And, you know, that I don't know, everybody has that type of experience with their colleagues, but we have a very collaborative area of law, and I just couldn't imagine doing it without all the supportive clients. So I'm gonna kind of wrap up now. You know, if anybody ever wants specific immigration advice, they can get in touch with McEntee Law Group. Our, you know, email address is info@mcenteelaw.com. Megan from our team, our amazing client coordinator, will help set up a consultation for people. We've just a great team of wonderful attorneys and staff. Elena, one of our relatively newer attorneys to our firm, she's been practicing a long time, just wrote a great blog on Hispanic Heritage Month to share her experience. She's from Argentina, so she wrote a blog, so hopefully you guys can check that out. And we'll be continuing to share more of our team with you, and look forward to keeping in touch on here. And then definitely when I get all the details on the travel ban, I'll pop back on, even if it's not on the first Friday. It can do stuff in the interim as well. So stay tuned for more updates, and I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend, and take care, everybody. Bye.